On this Monday night, new details about the man charged in an apparent second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. How close the suspect got to Trump, his troubled past, and how the Secret Service spotted him. Plus, a Canadian who once crossed paths with the suspect.
What was your read on him?
The new balance of power as MPs return to work.
We are playing chicken with 4 cars. Eventually, one will hit another one.
And the high stakes as 2 by-elections are held today. A deep dive into the doomed Titan submersible, the hopeful last message sent by the crew. Plus, Ottawa's Terry Fox Memorial sculpture on the move.
Let's remember him as one of the greatest Canadians that lived among us.
What its new home symbolizes.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There's more information tonight on the latest apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Investigators say the suspect was hiding in the area of Trump's Florida golf course for 12 hours before a Secret Service agent spotted a rifle and opened fire. The suspect, they say, then gave himself up. This is body cam footage of his arrest.
You want to go with
Keep walking!
What's your name, boss? Ryan?
58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh was arrested without incident. Investigators say he did not fire a shot at Trump, but was carrying a loaded rifle with a scope. Jackson Proskow has our top story on what we know about the suspect, his criminal past, and how seriously this is being taken.
Shackled and in prison clothes, Ryan Routh made his first court appearance, facing federal charges related to the rifle police allege he brandished outside Donald Trump's Florida golf course. According to court documents, cell phone data suggests he was in the area for nearly 12 hours before he was spotted and confronted by the Secret Service as Trump played the course.
The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agents.
The suspect's troubled past is quickly coming into focus, including a 2002 conviction for an armed standoff with police. His extensive posts on social media show views spanning the political spectrum.
What was your read on him?
Crazy. Just another crazy person.
Canadian conflict researcher Donald Bowser says he met Routh in Ukraine at the start of the Russian invasion.
We need thousands and thousands and thousands of people here fighting with the Ukrainians.
He says Routh was posing as a recruiter for the Ukrainian army and tried to make money by charging foreign fighters to enlist.
The red, white, and blue hair was a kind of distinct. And the fact that he looked, like basically a homeless guy walking around with a sandwich board trying to recruit military.
Years later, how Routh allegedly got a hold of a machine gun and within a few hundred meters of a presidential candidate is now the focus of a Secret Service investigation.
Thank God the president's okay. One thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help.
Take a look at what happened.
The agency is already facing serious scrutiny over security failures during the first attempt on Trump's life just 9 weeks ago. In Florida, the acting director of the agency met with Trump about this latest close call.
It's time to move beyond recrimination and blame. While there's certainly room for that in the investigations, we need to provide realistic, pragmatic, and legislative regulatory fixes to help the Secret Service better serve those it protects and the American people.
Jackson, we know a bit about this suspect's background and his strong feelings about Ukraine, but is there any indication of his political views, why he would target former President Trump?
Well, Donna, so far, nothing that's abundantly clear. Investigators say they're scouring his numerous social media posts and his search history, but this does not seem to be, from the outset, politically motivated. But Donald Trump is suggesting otherwise tonight. And in social media posts, Trump is suggesting that what he calls the rhetoric and lies of his opponent, Kamala Harris, are in fact to blame. And in a post on his own social media platform, he says, "The bullets are flying and it will only get worse." Donna?
Jackson in Washington, thanks. Well, here in Canada, MPs are back in action in Ottawa, returning to a parliament where the power dynamics of the minority government have changed. Now that the NDP is broken up with the Liberals, the Conservatives hope to trigger a non-confidence motion and an election as soon as possible. And the Liberals are sharpening their attacks. It's all happening against the backdrop of two key by-elections seen as another test of the Prime Minister's leadership. Touria Izri reports.
Oral questions.
New political reality, same debate. Now with the specter of a potential early election over the carbon price.
This tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty.
Here's a news flash for the Conservative leader. Climate change costs money.
The Prime Minister also highlighted a finding from the Parliamentary Budget Office that 8 out of 10 Canadians get money back in rebates. But Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calls it an existential threat.
What I heard yesterday from Mr. Poilievre was so over the top, so irresponsible, so immature, and something that only a fraudster would do.
Even if Poilievre wants Canadians to go to the polls over the issue, that will depend on whether the NDP topples the government. Leader Jagmeet Singh says he'll go vote by vote, but is taking a page from Poilievre and distancing himself from carbon pricing.
Canadians are doing their part. They're absolutely fighting this climate crisis, and they care about fighting this climate crisis. What we're not seeing is big polluters doing their share.
Canadians are.
The New Democrats broke off their agreement supporting the Liberals ahead of two by-elections with national implications. The NDP is trying to hang on to a seat in Winnipeg in a tight race against the Conservatives, while the Liberals are hoping to hold on to a riding in Montreal that's been red for decades. Losing it would be another major blow to the party after an upset in Toronto this June.
Member for the electoral district of Toronto, St. Paul.
The newly elected Conservative MP Don Stewart made his debut in the House. And just as this session begins, there's speculation about how quickly it may end.
We are playing chicken with 4 cars. Eventually, one will hit another one, and there will be a wreckage. So I'm not certain that this session will last a very long time.
It's a good line. Touria is with me now. Touria, beyond all the politics, what was announced that will actually have an impact on Canadians?
Well, Donna, there was a housing announcement today. The Liberals are relaxing some of the rules around mortgages. The government is expanding who's eligible for a 30-year amortization period. Ottawa is also raising the price cap for insured mortgages, so more Canadians can buy homes without putting down 20%. The changes kick in December. But even if it's easier to qualify for a mortgage, it will likely mean Canadians take on higher debt and wind up paying more for their homes in the long run. Donna?
All right, Touria in Ottawa tonight, thanks. The federal inquiry into foreign interference is shifting focus to how well Canada's counterintelligence agencies are able to deal with meddling in upcoming elections. And the head of the inquiry said today she will not name names of those MPs and political players suspected of participating in foreign interference.
Canada is a state governed by the rule of law, which recognizes and protects the fundamental rights of every individual, including the right to fully defend oneself against charges and accusation.
In June, it was revealed that an unknown number of Canadian politicians, wittingly or unwittingly, worked with foreign states to interfere in the country's democratic process. Commissioner Marie-Josée Augue says the allegations are based on classified information, which means she cannot make them or the names of the people public. One of the 8 teenage girls charged in a swarming attack on a man in downtown Toronto in December of 2022 will not face further time in custody. The girl, who was 13 at the time, pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the attack on Kenneth Lee. She is the first to be sentenced in this case and has spent 15 months in pretrial custody. She'll serve another 15 months probation under an intensive support and supervision program. The 59-year-old man, who was living in Toronto's shelter system, died after he was swarmed and stabbed by a group of girls. 7 others between the age of 13 and 16 have also been charged. A former senior member of the Canadian Armed Forces has been found not guilty in a high-profile sexual assault case. Hayden Edmondson was accused of sexually assaulting a female soldier while deployed on a ship in the Pacific in 1991. As Mercedes Stevenson reports, the judge concluded the Crown did not meet the standard of proving its case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Never a doubt in my mind, man. Love you, man.
An emotional Hayden Edmondson embraced his family and friends outside the Ottawa courthouse.
I cried. It's a massive emotional outpouring because this has been hanging over our heads for over 3 years.
The retired Vice Admiral was the head of Military Personnel Command when he was accused of sexual assault, alleged to have taken place on a Canadian Navy ship at sea in 1991.
Retired Vice Admiral Edmondson is gratified by what can only be described as a clear, decisive vindication.
Ontario Superior Court Justice Matthew Weber ultimately found the Crown did not meet the burden of proof. He cited concerns about the complainant's recollection and inconsistencies in witness testimony.
I'm not surprised, unfortunately.
Megan McKenzie is an expert on sexual misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces. She says false allegations are rare and historic cases are notoriously difficult.
They do need substantial evidence that often many of them simply don't have.
Defense Minister Bill Blair, a former police officer, pledged programs to help the complainant.
My concern is in making sure that we provided the appropriate supports for her now. I can only imagine how traumatic the entire experience has been for her.
Victims groups say they're concerned about the potential chilling effect of today's verdict.
To have a legal system say, oh, but it's okay, it wasn't bad enough, or we don't believe you, it's very hard to deal with.
Donna, Hayden Edmondson's legal team criticized his chain of command, saying they rushed to judgment and abandoned him. But the retired Vice Admiral wouldn't say if that means that he plans to sue the federal government. Donna?
All right, Mercedes, thank you. A man who was once one of the most respected media figures in Britain has been given a suspended prison sentence after admitting to accessing indecent images of children. The judge told Hugh Edwards, who spent 4 decades at the BBC, that his reputation is now in tatters. He was given a 6-month suspended sentence, but avoids going to jail. Edwards pleaded guilty to 3 charges of having 41 illegal images of children on his phone sent to him by a convicted pedophile. The BBC said today, "We are appalled by his crimes. He has betrayed not just the BBC, but audiences who put their trust in him." Extreme weather is threatening lives in a number of places tonight. In the U.S., North Carolina is dealing with record rainfall and flash flooding. More than 45 centimeters of rain fell in just 12 hours in some places, and all that water surged into homes and submerged vehicles. Some people had to be rescued. The center of that system is expected to make landfall tonight and could also produce tornadoes and a dangerous storm surge. Shanghai ground to a halt today, hit by what's believed to be the strongest typhoon since 1949. Typhoon Babinka swamped roads, snapped trees, and cut power to the city of 25 million. Flights, ferries, and train services were suspended. Winds of up to 130 kilometers per hour were recorded. That's the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane. Torrential rainfall fell across Central and Eastern Europe, and it's causing catastrophic flooding. At least 16 people have died there. Several more are missing. Floodwaters have burst dams, inundated streets, and submerged entire neighborhoods across Austria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. Poland's army chief posted this video of a dog being airlifted to safety, saying, "We are evacuating people, but there's also room on board for our smaller brothers." New revelations at public hearings into the Titan submersible. Coming up, the final messages from the crew before that vessel imploded. There's new information tonight about the final moments of the Titan submersible, that vessel that was attempting to reach the wreck of the Titanic when it imploded off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. Everyone on board was killed. A public hearing into the doomed expedition has begun, and today, as Heidi Petracek reports, the Titan's final hopeful message to its mothership was revealed.
This is the haunting final image of the Titan submersible, its tail cone resting on the ocean floor, an image taken June 22nd, 2023, shared by the U.S. Coast Guard Monday, 4 days after the vessel and its 5 passengers went missing on their ill-fated deep-sea dive to the Titanic. Among the new revelations, text of the last communications from the Titan to its support ship, including this at 10:16 a.m. local time. "All good here. The Titan's final message at 10:47 simply dropped 2 weights, then silence.
I stopped the 2019 Titanic dive and I was fired for it.
Tony Nissen is OceanGate's former head of engineering. He described founder Stockton Rush as hard to work for, a man who believed seeking industry certification for the Titan would stifle innovation. Rush would die on board Titan, taking 4 paying customers with him. Nissen says Rush ignored his warnings about Titan's carbon fiber hull. In 2019, it had cracked. He told Rush to cancel OceanGate's planned dive that year.
We didn't have a home.
OceanGate told the public it called off the dive because of a lack of secondary vessel support. A new hull incorporating titanium parts from that prototype launched in 2021. The U.S. Coast Guard found before its final and fatal dive, the Titan had been damaged several times, suffered technical failures, and was even found partially sunk after a night of high seas the month before.
There is no regulation that prohibits an individual from designing an experimental vehicle.
This expert says putting passengers on board should require more oversight.
Their job is to create something so safe that nobody's life is at risk any more than it is when they ride a passenger plane.
The Coast Guard asked Tony Nissen, the former head of engineering, if he would have boarded Titan. His answer was no. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Critical vote ahead. The Montreal by-election seen as a mini referendum on Justin Trudeau's performance as Prime Minister. There are 2 federal by-elections underway in Canada today, one in Winnipeg and the other in Montreal. Both are a test for all the parties, but especially for the federal Liberals and leader Justin Trudeau. We looked at Winnipeg on Saturday night, and tonight we're focused on the riding of LaSalle-Aymard-Verdun. It's long been a Liberal stronghold and is up for grabs since former Justice Minister David Lametti resigned. As Mike Armstrong reports, the riding is very much in play.
It's not that this part of Montreal has always voted Liberal, but it's close. The LaSalle-Aymard-Verdun riding map has changed over the years, but basically there are parts of it that most years are close to a sure thing.
I'll just go what I normally go with.
Now, tradition may play in the Liberal Party's favor. They also have a well-known candidate, a longtime city councillor. What they have pulling them down is fatigue. This woman has always voted Liberal.
On voudrait du changement, disons.
She says she's now looking for change. Well, that sentiment is setting up the by-election as a 3-way race. A recent poll puts the Bloc Québécois in the lead with the NDP and Liberals close behind. But the riding doesn't lean towards separation, and the Bloc candidate isn't pushing it.
The ballot question is whether we're satisfied or not with Mr. Trudeau's government.
And in this by-election, people have a choice.
The more likely destination for disillusioned Liberals is one people have visited before. The area did support the NDP in the 2011 election, caught up by the Orange Wave. The NDP's candidate is also a well-known city councillor.
I usually vote Liberal, but I think now I'm going to vote NDP.
Now, this by-election could be a message from voters to the Liberal Party and bookend the summer the same way it started. In June, the party lost a by-election in another long-time Liberal riding, Toronto-St. Paul's.
To get 2 of these messages back-to-back would be quite a strain for the Liberal Party.
Losing seats that are supposed to be close to a sure thing is impossible to ignore. Justin Trudeau's brand isn't what it once was. His name may not be on the ballot, but his future may be on the line. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Next, a permanent home in Ottawa for a monument to a Canadian hero. Anything can be possible if you set your mind to it. Canadian hero Terry Fox proved that with his Marathon of Hope in 1980. His determination to raise money for cancer research is now celebrated all over the world. And all these years later, his influence and the example he set is still as powerful as ever. Eric Sorensen has the story of a memorial to Terry Fox in Ottawa.
For weeks, through Atlantic Canada and across Quebec, it was often a lonely run. But when Terry Fox reached Ottawa, Canadians really began to take notice. On the Spark Street Mall, right where he ran, the iconic Terry Fox sculpture has now found a permanent home.
We believe Terry symbolically continues to run and move forward.
His brother Daryl was with Terry for most of those marathons and remembers that day especially.
It was Ottawa and running down Spark Street Mall. I'm getting emotional again because it was such a significant moment. They lined the whole mall. And Terry picked up on that enthusiasm and energy, and I'm there right now.
It's the third location for the sculpture. At first it was kitty corner from the Chateau Laurier Hotel, then moved across from Parliament Hill, and now around the corner on Spark Street. The Parliament Hill space is needed now for new government offices, but having it so accessible on the nearby pedestrian walkway is great, says the son of the original sculptor.
It's lower now than it was, which is exactly what Dad would have wanted, I'm sure, because much of his work is interactive. He wants people to be involved with the statue.
From that point onward, Terry Fox's run captured the imagination of more and more Canadians. A celebrity by the time he reached Toronto, a quintessential Canadian hero, humble, determined to make a difference in cancer research.
Maybe I won't make it, but if it's up to me, I think I can do it.
2 months after reaching Ottawa, Terry's cancer returned, bringing an end to his run. He'd hoped to raise $1 million. 2, 1, let's go! Today, Terry Fox marathons have raised close to $1 billion. Sunday's event shows he's still inspiring a new generation 44 years later.
I kind of had the same cancer as Terry Fox, and I kind of confided in him a lot as an athlete myself.
Terry Fox was a young man on the move. His bronze sculpture captures that motion on one of the many Canadian streets where he took those familiar steps. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And of course, Terry Fox had to end his run near Thunder Bay, Ontario, when his cancer reoccurred. This bronze statue was unveiled in his honor there back in 1982, a year after his death. That is Global National for this Monday night. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.